Hey, hello everybody. Thanks for coming to class today. As you can see in the chat on Basecamp, I am trying to figure it out what time's gonna work best for us. As I know that a lot of you still have school Saturday morning. But I'm still figuring out what time should be best because it's obviously not this time. So I think that I might have to ask you guys to do some sort of voting or surveying about the time that is suitable for you guys, because my schedule is quite tight as well. But I will see if I can arrange everything. Okay. Okay. So for today, we're gonna continue to study chapter 2. Okay, the last time we stopped at chapter 2. Let me share my screen. Moment. Okay. Okay, so the last time we stopped at budget constraint. Okay. Oh, no. Let me reload this. Okay, so the last time we stopped at budget constraint, right? Okay, so I just want to quickly explain again what budget constraint is. So budget constraint basically means that we have a limited budget. Okay, so like this example, Anh has only 100,000 Việt Nam đồng per week, and she will divide that budget into two interests, is between milk tea or bus tickets. Okay, so remember what I said in chapter 1, how economists see problem and how they solve it. It's by dividing each problem and comparing them two at a time, side by side. Okay, so this is what we are seeing right here. Because we know that as a consumer, we have a lot of needs and a lot of wants, right? We have a fixed budget, and we need to divide that fixed budget into multiple items that we requires and we want and we need, right? And is it multiple items? It's not only two items that we're seeing right here, which is milk tea and bus tickets. But as economists, we tend to pick things out and comparing them one by one. Okay, in this case, we are picking out two items in the list of what we need and what we want, and we compare them with each other. Okay, so in this case, it's bus ticket and milk tea. Okay, so when we put bus ticket and milk tea side by side, we can see this is the line. We can see that this is the budget constraint line for Ang. Okay, so we see that this is a downward sloping. Okay, why is it a downward sloping curve? Downward sloping means nó chuối thẳng xuống á. Okay, it's a downward sloping line. And why is it like this? Because in order to gain more bus tickets, you have to give up more milk tea, right? So in order to gain more milk tea, you have to give up more bus tickets. Okay, so that's why we see these dots right here. All right, the more milk tea you get, the less bus ticket you have. And similarly, the more bus ticket you have, the less milk tea you have. Okay, So in real life, as a reasonable consumer, people not gonna choose the 2 points, the 2 extreme points. Okay, so this point and this point are extreme points. Okay, extreme points means that you spend all of your money in only one single good. Okay, in this case is bus tickets, and in this case is milk tea. Okay, so but in real life, people will choose these points in the middle because it has a combination of both goods, right? Okay, and my cat is fighting. Okay, they stopped. Okay, in order for us to figure out Ang's budget, we can also take the price of one good, multiply for the quantity of that good, and add it to the price of the other goods, multiply by the quantity of the other goods. Okay, so for example, if there are 3 items, okay, if there are 3 items, which is milk tea, bus ticket, and for example, okay, so let's say that milk tea would cost 20K per cup, bus ticket would cost 4K per time, and bánh mì would cost 10K per piece. Okay, so if we want to, let's say that G let's say G buys 3 milk tea for bus ticket and 5 bánh mì. Okay, so from this information, we can figure out G budget will be 3 multiplied by the price of milk tea, which is 20K, plus 4 bus ticket multiplied by 4 as the price of bus ticket by 4K as the price of bus ticket, and 5 multiplied by 10K, which is the price of per bánh mì, right? So this going to be G's budget, okay? And we can also, based on this, draw a, we can also, based on this information, and calculate G budget, okay? Okay, so far, is everybody clear about the consumer budget constraint? Okay, another point to keep in mind. How do I delete this? Okay. It is stuck. How do I delete this? Let me reshare my screen. Okay. Yep, so that is the budget constraint. And another point to keep in mind, the budget constraint is a line, okay, a straight line. This is a consumer's budget constraint. Budget constraint only apply for consumers, okay? Remember this, budget constraint only apply for consumers, okay? The reason why you will get to know it later, okay? Right, so you can see that the more bus ticket you buy, the less milk tea you could buy. So because of this, we call this opportunity cost. Okay, so every choice you make, there is an opportunity cost. Okay, if you want to buy a cup of milk tea, you have to give up bus tickets. And if you want to buy bus ticket, you have to give up milk tea. Okay, so that's called opportunity cost. Okay, so how do we find opportunity cost? Okay, let's say that we have a fixed budget constraint. Okay, what you see right here is a fixed budget constraint. Okay, so that budget is divided between chairs and TVs. Okay, you can buy 10 chairs and no TV. You can buy 5 chairs and 10 TVs. You can buy 0 chair and 20 TVs. Okay, so now we can say based on this table is that the opportunity cost of 10 TVs is 5 chairs. Okay, or the opportunity cost of 1 TV is 1.5 chairs. Okay, so why is this? Okay, so how do we make this clear? Okay, so let's say this is so before, okay, we can buy 10 chairs and no TV. Okay, but when we buy 10 TVs, we can only buy 5 chairs. Right? Okay, we're on the same page. Okay, but when we buy 20 TVs, we got no chair. Okay, so you can see that from 10 chairs, when we put our money into buying 10 TVs, we can only afford 5 chairs. Okay, so before we have 10 chairs, but now we only have 5 chairs, right? So we can see that there is a 5 chairs decrease from point A to point B, right? We see a 5 chairs decreased when we buy 10 TVs. Okay, are we on the same page? Okay, so that's why we say the opportunity cost for us to own 10 TVs, we have to give up 5 chairs. Okay, because before we have 10 chairs, but then when we buy 10 TVs, we can only afford 5 chairs. So because we buy 10 TVs, we have to give up 5 chairs. Am I making sense? Okay, and you guys can see that if I continue to buy 10 more TVs, right, then I no longer can afford any chairs. And before, I can afford 10 chairs. When I buy 10 more TVs, I cannot afford buying any chairs. Okay, so we can see this is also a 5 chairs decrease. So because of this, we can figure it out that with every 10 TVs we spend, we have to give up 5 chairs. Make sense? Does it make sense? Let me know if it's confusing. Okay, so we can see that with every 10 TVs, we have to give up 5 chairs. Okay, and we can see that with every TV we spend, we have to give up half a chair. Okay, so that is what opportunity cost is. Okay, let me just erase everything. Right. Now, let's calculate opportunity cost. Okay, so what is the opportunity cost of burgers? Okay, so do the math and let me know in the chat. Okay, I'll give you around 5 minutes to do this. Okay, I received 4 response. Okay, what's the rest? Okay, there are some people that have not sent me the answer. Okay. Okay, now let's see. So it's gonna be B, 3/8. Okay, so let's figure out why. Okay, so before we can buy 16 burgers and 0 books, but the opportunity cost, okay, remember what is the subject? So the subject is burger. Okay, the opportunity cost of buying more burgers. Okay, so if we want to buy more burgers, how much books do we give up? Right? So based on this, okay, because we are buying more burgers, I'm gonna start with this. So before we had 0 burger, okay, in order for us to get 8 burger, okay, we have to give up 3 books, right? So we can say that 8 burger equals to 3 books, right? Right? Okay, we are all agreeing this. Okay, so 8 burger equals to 3 books. So in order for us, this means that in order for us to get 8 burgers, we have to give up 3 books. Okay, so what is our subject? Our subject is burgers, right? So now, if this is the case, our subject is burger. So this means that 1 burger equals to 3.8 books. Okay, if our subject is books, then 1 book should equal to 8/3 burgers. Okay, so what is important is that you need to understand what is the subject here. What are they asking? Okay, are they asking about burgers or are they asking about books? If it is opportunity cost of burgers, that means in order for us to get more burgers, how many books do we have to give up? Okay, so remember Okay. Okay, next. Okay, now TVs. Okay, so this is another type of opportunity cost where it doesn't take into account the object, but the hour to produce. Okay, so what is the opportunity cost? What is the subject? Chairs is our subject. What is the opportunity cost of chairs that Jim produced in an hour? Okay, so think of this. All of us all have 24 hours, right? Nobody has more hour in a day, right? So when you choose to do something, that means you're spending time on it, right? And when you're spending time doing one thing, you are giving up time to doing another thing. For example, I spent 2 hours teaching this class. That means I give up 2 hours of going out to cafe, for example. Okay? So every decision you make, there are always the elements of time involved, right? Because everybody has finite time. Okay, only 24 hours per day. Okay, so when you decide to do one thing instead of another, you are sacrificing the hour of doing that thing. Okay, so that is what happening right here. Okay, so Jim produced in an hour. Okay, in an hour, Jim can produce 5 chairs and 3 TVs. Okay, while Tom can produce 10 chairs and 2 TVs. Okay, so if Jim spent the hour in producing chairs only, then how many TVs does Jim have to give up? Okay, do this and type the response in the chat. Okay, I will give you around 3 minutes. Okay, let's see the answer. Okay, it's D. So some of you guys choose C. Okay, some of you choose B as well and A as well. Okay. Okay. Now, first of all, Tom is a distraction. Okay. So we are seeing two people right here. Okay. It's Tom and Jim. But the questions only ask about Jim. They don't care about Tom. We don't need to care about Tom. If they're asking Jim, just give them Jim. Okay? So when they ask us Jim, you will immediately reject these two answers. Immediately. Why? Because it belongs to Tom. Right? You guys can see right here 10 and 2. So it's going to be something around 1/5, okay, or 2. Because with Jim, 5 and 3, there's no way the answer is going to be 1/5 or 2, right? So this is another tip when you're doing multiple choice as well. Because AP multiple choice, you only have around a minute to answer. Okay, so skim what the questions want, just like you do in SAT, just like you do it in IELTS. Okay, if there's anything suspicious, just cross it out. You don't need to put any thought into it. Okay, so that would left us with only C and D. Okay, so now let's dissect this. Okay, so with Jim, in order for him to produce 5 chairs in an hour, if he chooses to do 5 chairs in an hour, he would have to give up 3 TVs. Okay, in order for him to produce 5 chairs in an hour, he has to give up 3 TVs. Okay, the question asking us the opportunity cost of chairs. That means in order for him to produce 1 chair, how many TV does he has to give up? Okay, our subject is chairs. Okay, so that means we need to figure out how many TV we have to give up when we produce 1 chair, if the subject is mentioning chair. Okay, so in this case, it's 3/5 TV. Okay. Okay. If the subject again is TV, then 1 TV, in order for us to produce 1 TV, we have to give up 5/3 chairs. Okay. Yeah. It's exact. Yeah, it's like ratio. It is ratio. Yeah, it is ratio. Đúng không nè mọi người? Ok, mọi người, nếu mà mọi người đang có muốn sản xuất 5 cái ghế, thì để mà sản xuất 5 cái ghế á, thì mình phải bỏ 3 cái tivi đi. Tại vì trong 1 giờ mình chỉ có thể, 1 là làm 5 cái ghế, 2 là làm 3 cái tivi. Nên là nếu mà mấy bạn chọn 5 cái ghế á, thì nghĩa là các bạn đang bỏ đi 3 cái tivi. Hiểu không? Hiểu khúc này không? Ngược lại, nếu bạn chọn sản xuất tivi trong một cái giờ này, thì mấy bạn đang bỏ đi 5 cái ghế. Đúng không? Bây giờ cái đề đang hỏi mình là gì? Opportunity cost of chairs. Có nghĩa nó đang hỏi mình là sản xuất một cái ghế mình phải bỏ đi bao nhiêu cái tivi. Khi mà nó hỏi mình là opportunity cost of chairs là nó hỏi như vậy. Thì mình biết được là 5 cái ghế là mình mất 3 cái tivi. Thì một cái ghế thì mình nhân chéo chia ngang thôi, làm 3/5 cái tivi. Vậy thôi á mọi người. Còn nếu mà opportunity cost mình đang hỏi là opportunity cost của TV là gì, thì đồng nghĩa với chuyện là mình sản xuất một cái TV, mình phải bỏ đi bao nhiêu cái chairs. Again, ratio nhân chéo chia ngang thì mình sẽ có 5/3 chairs. Cái này á, nó không có khó, nhưng mà cái này mọi người phải xác định được là nó đang hỏi opportunity cost của cái gì. Mình rất là dễ bị ngược. Thì hồi nãy chị giải thích á, là 4 cái câu này, khi mà mình nhìn 4 cái đáp án này mình loại liền A với B. Tại vì A với B chỉ áp dụng cho Tom được thôi. Tom có 10 với 2 nè. Đúng không? Còn 5 với 3 làm sao mà ra được 2 TV với 1/5 TV được? Đúng không? Thì như vậy, tại vì như vậy Nên là mình loại liền A với B, mình chỉ consider C với D thôi. Ha, thì Jim có 5 cái ghế với 3 cái tivi đó như chị giải thích đó, thì mình sẽ có được cái đáp án là 3/5. Ha, rồi. Is everybody clear about this? The hard part of this is just it's confusing. That's all. Okay, so am I okay to move on? If I'm okay to move on, just send me a thumbs up. Okay, good, good, good. Okay. Okay, so now, how do we decide if we are a consumer? How do we decide which one should we give up and which one should we produce? Okay, so the thing that would help us making that decision is called marginal decision making. Okay, so what is marginal? Okay, so this concept is a little bit confusing, but you will get the hang of it because you will see this word a lot, margin. Okay, so margin means adding one unit into it. Okay, the word margin. Okay, đây chị giải thích tiếng Việt nha. Margin, mấy bạn sẽ thấy được cái chữ marginal rất là nhiều trong econ. Ha, và cái định nghĩa của cái chữ marginal này á, có nghĩa là khi mà bạn thêm một cái gì đó vào. Ha, marginal nghĩa là thêm một cái gì đó vào. Ví dụ như mình uống trà sữa, mình thêm một ly trà sữa vào, thì cái marginal benefit của cái việc thêm một cái ly trà sữa đó là bao nhiêu? Ha, ví dụ như em ăn một cái bánh, ăn một dĩa cơm sườn, thì mấy bạn ăn thêm một dĩa nữa, cứ thêm một cái đơn vị vô nữa, ha, thì nó sẽ gọi là marginal, nó gọi là biên á. Ha, mình hay nghe có chữ marginal revenue, nó nghĩa là biên lợi nhuận. Có nghĩa biên hay lợi nhuận không ta? Lợi nhuận. No, marginal revenue là biên doanh thu, marginal doanh thu. Thì có nghĩa là khi mà bạn bán thêm một cái đơn vị nữa, bạn thu được bao nhiêu tiền vô. Đó, cứ nghĩa là thêm một cái đơn vị nữa, thì cái effect nó là cái gì? Khi mà bạn thêm một cái đơn vị vô nữa thì nó sẽ gọi là marginal. Ha, okay. So, in order for us to make a decision, we have to do marginal analysis, which means we have to see whether the benefits or the cost of choosing to add one more unit of good into consumption is larger than its cost. Okay, so what are the bar for us to make that marginal analysis? So there is something we call utility. Okay, so utility means satisfaction. It means usefulness. Okay, so in economics, when we talked about utility, we don't mean like the water or electrical bills in your house. Utility is our satisfaction. Okay, think of it like that. Utility is our satisfaction. Okay, so if we consume one more good and our utility increase more than its cost, then we will decide to consume that extra unit. Okay, so utility does not grow infinite. Okay, so for example, utility stops when you are full, right? Let's talk about food. Okay, let's talk about food. Utility stopped when you are full. Okay, let's say you are craving a bowl of pho. You are craving a bowl of pho, but then you eat a bowl of pho, and you are like, damn, I'm still want another bowl. Okay, and then you eat that other bowl, and you're like, damn, I'm still want another, and then you eat the third bowl of pho, but then you are full, right? So if you are continue to consume more pho, the fourth bowl, the fifth bowl, your utility would not increase because you are already full. Okay, so utility has a limit. If you see that, oh, if I eat another bowl of pho, my utility is still increasing, then yeah, I will consume it. But if it's not, then what's the point of consuming it? Right? So the utility is the bar that help us make our marginal analysis. Okay? Okay, so after we consume the third bowl of pho and then we continue the sixth bowl of pho, gradually we will get tired of pho, right? You cannot consume one thing and be happy with it for the rest of your life, right? So this is called the law of diminishing marginal utility. That means when you consume an additional goods or service, the additional utility from each additional units of good will decline over time. Okay, so hiểu một cách đơn giản, đó là law of diminishing marginal utility, nghĩa là khi mà các bạn consume thêm một cái đơn vị hoài thì cái tính thỏa mãn khi bạn consume cái đơn vị đó sẽ từ từ giảm xuống. Mình đói bụng, mình ăn một tô phở mình thấy ngon, mình ăn thứ hai mình thấy ngon nhưng mà nó không thể là ngon bằng cái tô đầu tiên được, đúng không? Tới cái tô thứ ba là nó dở tô thứ hai, tới cái tô thứ tư là nó dở tô thứ ba, và nó cứ từ từ vậy, tới tô thứ năm là mình hết muốn ăn phở rồi, đúng không? Thì đó gọi là law of diminishing marginal utility, là khi bạn ăn thêm một cái đơn vị nữa thì cái tính thỏa mãn của bạn sẽ từ từ giảm xuống. Okay, so that's why we don't make extreme choices. Okay, we don't spend all of our budget buying one thing instead of buying a combination of a lot of things, right? Remember the example I talked about Ang's budget constraint, right? Ang would not want to spend all of his money in bus ticket or all of his money in milk tea, okay? Because of this law of diminishing marginal utility. But cool. Okay, so as a rational consumer, we will choose these points in the middle, which are a combinations of both bus tickets and milk tea. Okay. Okay, so there is one thing called sunk cost. So the sunk cost means that the cost that cannot be recovered and will not be affected anything in the future. Okay, so sunk cost would not affect current decision. Second, dealing with sunk costs, it's just admitting there is an error. Okay, so the lesson of sunk cost means to ignore it, okay, and make a decision based on what will happen in the future. Okay, to make it easier to understand for you what sunk cost means. So sunk cost means that, let's say you are exploring new options to drink milk tea. Okay, you choose that store, you went in, you bought a milk tea, but then when you drink it, you were like, this sucks. I don't like this milk tea. Can you go back and return the milk tea? No. Can you just throw away the milk tea? You were like, no, that's a waste of money. That's a waste of resources, right? So you just continue drinking the milk tea with the acceptance that this is just not worth the money, but you still have to accept that you just make an error. And that milk tea, the amount of money you pay for that milk tea is the sunk cost. Okay, however, does it because of that you stop trying other places of milk tea? No. Is it because of that you stop liking milk tea? No. Right? So that's why sunk cost does not affect future decision. Okay? Okay, so the lesson of sunk cost is to move forward from it. Right? Just don't make the same mistake and just move forward from it. Okay, so for businesses, dealing with sunk costs is kind of tricky because the first step of identify that this is a sunk cost is that you have to admit you make an error in judgment. Okay, and we know that this has been, like, as human nature, we hate admitting that we are wrong, right? So sometimes it's a sunk cost, but it's not identified as sunk cost because we refused to admit that we made an error judgment. Okay, we still consider it, oh, it's still a work in process. It's not happening yet, or something like that. Okay. So in terms of sunk costs, does anybody have a question? Am I good to move on? If I'm good to move on, just give me a thumbs up. If you have any question about sunk costs, let me know. Okay, good. Okay. Now, this is a production possibility frontier. Okay, so this is what I call it, to make it easier for you guys, is an upscale budget constraint, but for society. Okay, remember I said that budget constraint only applies for consumers, right? Because when we zoom out into society, into the economy, we don't use budget constraint. We use production possibility frontiers. But in this nature, it's basically the same. But the subject we're seeing right here is different. It also have a couple of different things about its feature. Okay, but however, the concept behind it still remains the same. It still means that with the fixed amount of money, and we have to spend it between two things. Okay, so this is a production possibility frontier. Okay, this line, this curved line, is production possibility frontier. Right? So like consumers, societies also have limited resources. Okay, how? Let's say labor. Okay, we don't have an infinite amount of labor. We don't have an infinite amount of land. We don't have an infinite amount of capital or raw materials. So there is a limit in the natural resources and the input and the resources to produce in the society. And because of that, societies also have its own budget constraint in the form of production possibility frontier, okay, or the PPF. Okay, so PPF is a combination of output that the economy can produce with the giving available resources. Okay, available resources and also available technology. Okay, because let's say if you have gold, but you don't have the technology to process gold, then all you have is still gold. Okay, so that's why it's important to have the resource, but also have the technology. Okay, so let's say that society are trying to allocate their budget between healthcare and education. Okay, so what we're seeing right here is the production possibilities frontier of healthcare and education. Okay, so you can see this is not a straight line, right? It's not a straight line like budget constraint. It's a curve. Okay, the reason why it's a curve, we can see right here. Okay, so this is a comparison side by side between budget constraint and production possibility frontiers. Okay, so first of all, budget constraint is a straight line, while production possibilities frontier is a curved line. Okay, it also can be a straight line, but in reality, it should be a curved line. Okay, and why is it a curved line? Okay, because it's the law of diminishing returns. Okay, so the slope is going to be different in each point in the PPF. Well, in budget constraint, the slope is fixed between two goods. Okay, let's say you with view is like buying bus ticket and drink milk tea. You need the transportation, like you have to move to school and home using bus, right? So your slope, your want to travel by bus is already fixed. Okay, but with healthcare and education, there's a lot of things involved, and you cannot identify, you cannot fix the slope because there are a lot of elements that cannot be defined yet. Okay, so now let's talk about the shape of PPF and what is the law of diminishing returns. Okay, so the shape of PPF, if it's a straight line, then there is a constant opportunity cost. Constant means that unchanged. That means it's unchanged. Okay, but if it's bold outward, like this shape, bold outward, then it's an increasing opportunity cost. Okay, meaning that the more units of a good are produced, the more amount of the other good produced we have to give up. Okay, so let's say if you produce if you invest 3,000 in healthcare, okay, you give up 2,000 in education. Okay, but when okay, I'm gonna explain it more to you guys. I don't think that example is gonna help. Okay, so the PPF will bold outward when different workers have different skills, when we have different opportunity costs, when we have other resources, varied resources, mix of resources. Basically, when the PPF have elements that cannot be defined and then does not have a number, then the PPF will go out. Okay. Second. Okay. Now, okay. So you see right here. Okay, follow my mouse. Okay. So we will see right here from A to B is relatively flat, meaning that it's kind of like a horizontal line, right? It's kind of a horizontal line. But from B to C, we see there's a little bit of a curve going downward. And it's the most obvious when you go from C to D, which is a very steep slope downward, right? And from D to F is basically vertical. Okay, so the more we reach the F, the more steep it gets, right? Okay. Let me see. Okay, so let me explain this. Okay, I think I'm gonna explain it in Vietnamese for you guys. Okay. Tại sao cái đường này nó lại cong? Ha, tại vì có những cái element mà mình không xác định được ở trong PPF. Về budget constraint á, thì mấy bạn thấy được là mình có một cái fixed budget. Và trong cái fixed budget đó, milk tea hay là bus ticket mình đều có một cái giá trị hết. Và vì có những cái giá trị đó nên cái slope của mình á, cái slope của mình nó constant, nó không có thay đổi. Vì nó không có thay đổi nên nó là một cái đường thẳng đứng như vậy. Nhưng mà khi mà mình nói tới healthcare, mình nói tới education ha, thì hồi nãy chị có nói là resources của mình là limit, nhưng mà các bạn có biết là các bạn có bao nhiêu land không? Các bạn đâu có biết được là các bạn có bao nhiêu resource, bạn đâu có biết là các bạn có bao nhiêu technology được. Tất cả những cái đó là những cái thứ tương đối, đúng không? Mình không có một cái số xác định nào, một số nhất định nào để mình có thể xác định được nó được. Và hai cái subject mà mình nhìn ở đây là healthcare và education, nó cũng như vậy. Mình không thể nào mình biết được là mình thêm bao nhiêu day healthcare thì nó sẽ được bao nhiêu, đúng không? Healthcare mình đâu có đếm được đâu, mình có đếm 1 healthcare, 2 healthcare, 3 healthcare được đâu. Mình đâu có đếm được 1 education, 2 education, 3 education được đâu. Đúng không? Khi mà khi mà mình nhìn cái slide này, mình nhìn cái graph này, có nghĩa là nó đang có ý nghĩa là mình đầu tư thêm cho healthcare, mình đầu tư thêm cho education. Đầu tư thêm cho healthcare nghĩa là sao? Nghĩa là mình thêm cơ sở vật chất cho bệnh viện nè, mình thêm đút tiền nhiều thêm cho nghiên cứu nè, mình tuyển thêm nhiều y bác sĩ nè, tăng lương y bác sĩ đó, tất cả những cái đó là nằm trong cái scope của healthcare hết. Nên là mình không thể nào có cái con số rõ ràng là cái gì healthcare đó là bao nhiêu healthcare được, đúng không? The same goes for education cũng vậy, đúng không? Mình bỏ tiền vô education có nghĩa là mình tăng lương giáo viên, mình xây thêm trường lớp, mình cải thiện cơ sở vật chất của trường lớp đó, giống vậy. Thì những cái đó mình đâu thể nào mình đếm được đâu, mình đâu có đếm mà mình đầu tư cho một giáo viên hay là mình đầu tư cho một giáo dục được đâu, đâu có được đâu, đúng không? Vì như vậy nên là những cái effect các bạn nhìn thấy ở đây là những cái effect tương đối ha. Rồi giải thích tiếp tại sao, đó là một cái lý do nha. Lý do đầu tiên tại sao nó là một cái đường cong là tại vì mình không có một cái số nào mà xác định chính xác được để mà giữ nó constant như là cái đường budget constraint hết ha. Rồi cái lý do thứ hai đó là cái bản chất của cái việc đầu tư quá nhiều cho một thứ ha, nó gọi là cái law of diminishing return á, cái này chị sẽ giải thích tiếp. Rồi thì nó ví dụ trong cái trường hợp A và cái trường hợp F. A mình đầu tư hết tất tật tiền cho healthcare và mình không bỏ một đồng nào cho education hết. Thì trong cái trường hợp A á, có nghĩa là mọi người không có đi học, không có giáo viên, không có học sinh hay không có bất kỳ một cái hình thức giáo dục nào cả, tại vì đâu có tiền đầu tư đâu mà có, đúng không? Nên là tất cả mọi thứ, thay vì mỗi ngày học sinh tới trường thì mỗi ngày học sinh sẽ đi tới bệnh viện, tại vì tất cả mọi cái tiền đều cho healthcare rồi, đúng không? Thay vì mỗi ngày gặp giáo viên thì mỗi ngày nó sẽ đi gặp bác sĩ đó. Rồi ở cái trường hợp ngược lại là cái trường hợp F, lúc này F là mình đầu tư hết tất tần tật tiền cho education và mình không bỏ một đồng cắt nào cho healthcare hết, xong rồi người ta sẽ chết nườm nượp luôn, tại đâu có bệnh viện nào vô, đâu có bác sĩ đâu chữa, đúng không? Nhưng mà thay vì người ta ốm người ta tới bệnh viện thì người ta ốm quá người ta tới trường đó. Thì A với F là hai cái trường hợp không thể nào xảy ra được ha. Rồi tưởng tượng, mấy bạn tưởng tượng ở cái trường hợp A nha, tưởng tượng ở trường hợp A, khi mà mấy bạn bỏ một chút xíu tiền cho education thôi, bạn xây một cái ngôi trường lên thì có phải là tất cả mọi người đều ùa vô cái ngôi trường đó đi học, đúng không? Đều ùa vô cái ngôi trường đó đi học, giáo viên đều ùa vô làm giáo viên hết đó. Thì cái tác dụng, cái effect của cái chuyện bỏ một chút xíu tiền cho education là rất lớn. Trong khi đó mấy bạn chỉ cần give up một xíu của healthcare thôi, đúng không? Let's say healthcare có 100 phần, còn let's say healthcare có 10 phần, mấy bạn trích đúng 2 phần mấy bạn cho trường thôi, nhưng mà bạn mở cái trường đầu tiên nó sẽ rất là nhiều người muốn vô học, rất là nhiều người muốn làm giáo viên, rồi cái chuyện mà giáo dục nó sẽ có cái effect rất là cao, đúng không? Giống như là bạn ăn cái tô phở đầu tiên vậy đó, cái effect nó giống như các bạn ăn tô phở đầu tiên các bạn nó đói bụng, các bạn ăn tô phở đầu tiên vậy đó, nó đã giống vậy đó. Thì khi các bạn trích một chút xíu tiền ra cho education, cái tác dụng của nó cũng sẽ giống như cái tô phở đó như vậy ha. Đó là tại sao mấy bạn nhìn cái đường gạch trống nè, cái dash nè, thì các bạn thấy là từ A tới cái điểm B nó giảm có chút xíu à, đúng không? Ở cái đường healthcare nè, từ A tới điểm B nó giảm có chút xíu à, nhưng mà về education nha, nó đang từ không mà nó lại nhảy một cái bậc rất cao như vậy, rất to như vậy đó. Nó chứng minh cho cái effect của cái chuyện trích một chút xíu tiền, give up một chút xíu benefit của healthcare mà nó tạo ra được cái effect cho education rất là lớn ha. Rồi bây giờ bắt đầu mình qua cái điểm C cũng như vậy, mình vẫn thấy là cái effect mình đạt được khi mà mình đầu tư thêm cho education nó vẫn lớn hơn là cái effect của healthcare mà mình give up ha. Nhưng mà khi mà mấy bạn tới điểm D là có chuyện xảy ra nè. Khi mà bạn tới điểm D các bạn thấy là từ cái điểm C nha, chị lấy cái bút. Từ cái điểm C xuống cái điểm D, và từ cái điểm D và từ cái điểm C nha qua cái điểm D ha, thì mình có thể thấy là nó bắt đầu nó bằng nhau rồi, cái effect của nó bắt đầu bằng nhau rồi. Mặc dù cái effect của education mình vẫn tăng, nhưng mà nó sẽ không tăng mạnh như là cái điểm B và cái điểm C nữa ha, mà bắt đầu nó bằng nhau rồi, nó bị chững lại rồi ha. Nghĩa là bạn đang có 10 phần, vì bạn đầu tư 5 phần cho bệnh viện, bạn đầu tư 5 phần cho education rồi, nên là cái effect của hai cái đó nó bắt đầu nó bằng nhau, nó tương đương nhau rồi ha. Rồi khi mà mình qua tới điểm F, từ điểm D qua tới điểm F là đây là cái trường hợp extreme của mình, là tất cả mọi người đều đi học thay vì bị bệnh đi bác sĩ ha. Thì các bạn có thể thấy là khi mà từ điểm D xuống điểm F, cái effect của education từ điểm D tới điểm F nó nhỏ xíu à, không trace được luôn, chị đâu có vẽ được ở trong cái khúc nhỏ xíu này được đâu, đúng không? Nhưng mà cái effect mà nó keep up nó lại lớn, của healthcare mà nó keep up thì nó lại lớn ha. Thì đây là cái pattern mà mình sẽ thấy. Cái law of diminishing return nó tương tự như là cái law of diminishing nó tương tự như là cái diminishing marginal utility vậy đó ha. Một tô phở thì thấy ngon, hai tô thấy cũng được, ba tô thấy hơi ngán, bốn tô là ngán thiệt đó. Thì cái effect của việc mình đầu tư quá nhiều cho education và đầu tư quá nhiều cho healthcare nó cũng giống như vậy ha. Rồi đó là tại sao nó cũng là embody cho cái law of diminishing returns luôn. Nghĩa là bạn đầu tư cho cái gì đó quá nhiều thì cái returns bạn nhận lại được nó sẽ từ từ giảm xuống ha. Rồi giờ cái này các bạn nào chưa hiểu không? Các bạn nào có thắc mắc gì về cái đường này không? Nếu bạn có thắc mắc thì bạn có unmute và bạn nói luôn nha, cho nó lẹ. Cái điểm C nó không hẳn là balance, mà cái không phải là gọi là balance mà là cái điểm C, cái effect không, cái điểm C nó đâu có bằng đâu, nhưng mà cái điểm C nó đâu có bằng đâu, để chị vẽ cho mọi người coi nha. Các bạn hỏi chị là cái điểm C có phải là cái điểm bằng không, thì các bạn nhìn nha, cái effect mình quan sát á, là từ điểm B xuống điểm C, từ một điểm nào đó xuống một điểm nào đó, thì từ điểm B nó đang bao nhiêu đây, cái effect mình gain được từ mình, cái effect mình giảm xuống của healthcare là bao nhiêu đây, cái effect mình gain được từ education là nhiêu đây ha. Thì rõ ràng là mình thấy là từ điểm B qua điểm C nó education nó vẫn cao hơn mà, đúng không? Đúng không? Rồi ngược lại nếu mà điểm D nè, từ điểm C xuống điểm D ha, thì mình thấy là đây, cái loss của healthcare ha và cái gain của education nó bắt đầu nó bằng nhau ha. Có nghĩa là cái mà chị muốn thể hiện ở đây là gì, là khi mà mình bỏ nhiều tiền cho education và mình bắt đầu mình give up nhiều healthcare hơn, thì cái effect của cái chuyện đầu tư cho education nó sẽ từ từ nó giảm xuống. Những cái đồng tiền đầu tiên mình đầu tư cho education, cái effect nó rất lớn so với lại cái thứ mình give up cho healthcare ha. Nhưng mà càng về sau mình bỏ nhiều tiền vào education thì mình lại mất nhiều healthcare hơn, cái effect của healthcare càng ngày càng nhiều mà cái return gain được từ education nó lại giảm xuống ha. Rồi thì cái chỗ này ok chưa? Okay. Okay, so let's take 5 minutes, okay, of a break. And in that 5 minutes, please fill in your attendance form. Okay, before I forget to send you that, let me send you the form link again and open the form. Recording in progress. Okay, so yep, please fill in the form in your 5 minutes break. Okay, have you finished filling the form? Check. I think there's a couple of you who have not filled in the form. I think 2 of you have not filled in the form. So okay, let me see who have not filled in the form. Hannah, I think Hannah, you have not filled in the form yet. And also Hammy, you have not filled in the form yet as well. Okay, the 2 of you, please go ahead and fill in the form so that you can close the form. Okay. Okay, let me know when you have filled in the form. Okay, I'm going to close the form now. I think there's one still have not submitted, but I'm going to close it anyway. Okay. Okay, let's continue. Okay. Now, let's talk about the law of diminishing returns. Okay, this is also the law of increasing cost. Okay, this happens when we keep adding increments of resources to produce more of a good or a service, but the marginal benefits from those additional increments decline. Okay, that means we keep investing in that thing, investing in it, but the returns that it gives us declining. Okay, like the incidents when we see that if we put more money into education, and the more money we put, at some point the returns will drop. Okay, so this is called the law of diminishing returns. Okay, so the law of diminishing marginal utilities is a more specific case of the law of diminishing returns. Okay. Okay, so how do we able to realize where we are in the slope? Okay, even though this is the graph, right? But in real life, there's no way you can know that, oh, we are in point C, we are in point D, or something like that. There's no point, like there's no way we know which point we are at. Okay, this is just a assumption. Okay, this is all of an assumption. So this is just an assumption of how the benefits when you put more money into something and the effect that it gives you. So this is just an assumption. Okay, this is just a graph. Okay, in real life, you cannot possibly know where you're at, right? So how do we know where we at? Is when we identified productive efficiency and allocative efficiency. These two efficiency will help us realize where we are in the graph. Okay, so productive efficiency, it means that we can, okay, wait. Having available inputs and technologies and possibly produce more of one good without increasing the quantity. Not a good. Okay. Okay, so productive efficiency means that with the available inputs and technologies, when you want to produce more of one good, we have to sacrifice the quantity to produce another good. Okay, let's say you are a business and you are selling iPhones and Samsung phones. Okay, so if you want to produce more Samsung phones, you have to decrease the quantity of the phones that you produced. Okay, so that is productive efficiency. Okay, when we compare productive efficiency with this company versus another company, you will see why it matters. Okay, now next is allocative efficiency. So allocative efficiency means that we reached the combination of goods and services that is the most desired. Okay, that's like the peak combination. Okay, so like for example, A, B, and C. Let's say C, okay, has the allocative efficiency. That means C is where we have the best combination. It's where healthcare works and it's where education works as well. Okay, so all of our efforts is to go and find the allocative efficiency. Okay, that means allocative efficiency means the supply meets the demand. It means that the quantity that we produce meets the demand of the consumers. Okay, let's say I produce 15 iPhones. And that is exactly how many iPhones that the society wants, 15. Okay, so that is allocative efficiency. Okay, so all of our effort in adjusting input, adjusting cost, adjusting output, adjusting price is to reach allocative efficiency. Okay? Okay, so let's talk about productive efficiency first, okay, in details. So you see right here, from point A to point E, all of these points are productive efficiency. Okay, all of this point is productive efficiency. Okay, however, when we produce on this line, on the budget constraint line, that means we are using all of our budget. Okay, but if we produce at point F, we are not being efficient. Why? It's because we can produce more than this combination with the budget we have. Okay, so this point, when we trace it here, and let me open the okay, so this is F, okay? But with F, when I expand it to reach our budget constraint, the quantity we can produce is actually much greater than the point F. So if we are producing at point F, we are not being effective. We are not being efficient. Okay? So all of the points from A to E is where we are being efficient in our production. We utilize all of our budget, okay? And we also have the point G, okay? To produce at point G is impossible. Why? It's because we don't have enough resources to produce it. Okay, so let's say we already have 100,000 Vietnam đồng. Okay, if we're doing this combination, it's already, let's say it's already, for example, it's already 2,000. It's already 200,000 Vietnam đồng. We don't have the budget to produce this much resource, this much products. Okay, and because of that, G is impossible to achieve. Okay, from point A to point E is our productive efficiency. Okay, so as a business, you also have to find your productive efficiency. Okay, you cannot produce at G, you cannot produce at F as well. Okay, you have to produce either one of these points, okay, in order to make it effective, efficient. Okay. Next. Let me delete this. Okay, there is something called comparative advantage. Comparative advantage is when you compare our country versus another country in terms of their opportunity cost. Okay, so remember we have Jim and, let's go back. Remember we have Jim and Tom, right? So Jim and Tom, let's do this as an example. So we know that in order for Jim to produce a chair, it would take him 3/5 TVs. Okay, so now let's see what Tom's opportunity cost for chair is. Tom. Okay, so Tom opportunity cost for chair is equal. Okay, so in order for him to make 10 chairs, he has to give up 2 TVs, right? So now in order for him to produce a chair, he has to give up 1/5 TV. Okay, so compare with Jim's OG for chairs, which is 1 chair equals to 3/5 TV. Okay, so this means that Tom, in order for him to do 1 chair, he has to give up 1/5 TV. But in order for Jim to do 1 chair, he has to give up 3/5 TVs. Okay, so who has a greater opportunity cost? Can you tell me in chat? Jim or Tom? Who has the higher opportunity cost of producing chairs? Okay, so tell me in the chat, who has the greater opportunity cost in producing chair? Tell me in the chat, Tom or Jim? Who has the higher opportunity cost in producing chair? Okay, I'm glad that I see your answer. Okay, guys, Jim has the higher opportunity cost. Okay, dễ thật nha. Tom là một cái ghế phải bỏ đi 1/5 cái tivi. Jim là một cái ghế phải bỏ đi 3/5 cái tivi. Vậy thì so 1/5 với 3/5 cái nào lớn hơn? 3/5 lớn hơn đúng không? 3/5 lớn hơn, nghĩa là để cho thằng Jim nó sản xuất một cái ghế thì nó phải bỏ nhiều cái tivi hơn là thằng Tom. Hiểu không? Hiểu không? Nên là cái opportunity cost để mà sản xuất một cái ghế thì thằng Jim lớn hơn thằng Tom. Tại vì thằng Jim nó phải bỏ tới 3/5 cái tivi để mà nó sản xuất một cái ghế lận. Trong khi thằng Tom nó chỉ là 1/5 cái tivi thôi. Ha. Đó. Nên là cái comparative advantage là nó sẽ lấy hai cái opportunity cost để mà nó so sánh với nhau. Thằng nào mà opportunity cost của nó thấp hơn nha, thì thằng đó sẽ có comparative advantage. Ha, rồi để chị move qua sang cái slide của mình đang ở. Đây, comparative advantage. Sao để chị đây. Không có chỗ nào trống để hết chị. Ok. Ok, that work. Ok. Chị. Rồi. Ok. Đó. Thì khi mà mấy bạn nhìn comparative advantage là mình tập trung vào opportunity cost. Cái này nó chỉ là mới là giới thiệu về comparative advantage thôi, nhưng mà chị nói luôn tại bài sau mình sẽ touch comparative advantage nữa. Khi mà mình nói về comparative advantage nghĩa là cái khả năng sản xuất một cái gì đó mà opportunity cost của nó thấp hơn so với lại một cái người khác sản xuất cái đó. Trong cái trường hợp này chị ví dụ cho mọi người là Tom với Jim. Nhưng mà khi mà mình nói về opportunity khi mà mình nói về comparative advantage là mình sẽ nói về country, mình sẽ nói về country hoặc mình sẽ nói về business. Mình sẽ nói những thứ bự hơn. Cái Tom và cái Jim là một cái ví dụ nhỏ để các bạn hiểu được opportunity cost nó đóng vai trò như thế nào với comparative advantage. Rồi thì trong cái ví dụ này nè thì mình thấy là mình sẽ so sánh US với lại Brazil. Thì mình so sánh giữa sugarcane, mía với lại wheat. Rồi thì Brazil mưa thuận gió hòa thì sản xuất nhiều sugarcane nhưng mà không quá nhiều wheat. Nhưng mà ngược lại thì US lại sản xuất được nhiều wheat hơn là sugarcane. Thì bởi vì như vậy rồi thì nó không chạy. Bởi vì như vậy mình có thể suy ra là Brazil có lower opportunity cost để mà sản xuất mía hơn là US. Và vì Brazil có opportunity cost sản xuất mía thấp hơn US nên khi mà mình so sánh hai đứa này với nhau nha, thì Brazil có comparative advantage trong việc sản xuất sugarcane so với US. Tất cả những cái thứ mình nói ở đây là mình đều so sánh hai thứ với nhau. Mấy bạn sẽ có một cái term đó là ceteris paribus. Cái term đó có nghĩa là hold everything constant, nghĩa là tất cả những gì xung quanh nó đều không ảnh hưởng. Khi mà mình so sánh wheat và sugarcane là mình chỉ so sánh wheat và sugarcane giữa Brazil và US thôi. Thằng Nhật nó làm gì, Việt Nam làm gì không quan tâm. Tất cả những thứ mình đưa cái kết luận ở đây là chỉ là so sánh giữa hai cái nước này với nhau thôi. Mình nói Brazil có comparative advantage có nghĩa là nó có comparative advantage so với thằng US, chứ mình không có nói là Brazil có comparative advantage so với Nhật, so với Hàn. Mình không có nói gì từ đó đây hết, mình chỉ nói duy nhất là hai đứa là Brazil và US thôi. Rồi ngược lại US thì lại sản xuất được nhiều wheat hơn là Brazil, nên mình nói là US có lower opportunity cost khi mà sản xuất wheat hơn là Brazil. Thì US có comparative advantage in wheat compare with Brazil. Rồi, ok. Nó quay ngược lại với là cái ví dụ Tom với là Jim của mình. Thì again, cái nào có lower opportunity cost, cái đó có comparative advantage. Nhớ cái này nha. Rồi. So far, mấy bạn có hiểu về comparative advantage chưa? Có câu hỏi gì không? Nếu mà bạn có câu hỏi, bạn cứ unmute với bạn nói luôn ha, cho nó lẹ. Hoặc là bạn giơ tay đi rồi chị unmute cho mấy bạn nói. Tiếng gì, tiếng Anh gì cũng được hết. Rồi nếu mà bạn không có câu hỏi gì thì cũng react tâm đắc cho chị ha. Ok, cool. Rồi, ok. Rồi, thì những cái economic approach này, this economic approach also have a lot of controversy and a lot of objections. Okay, because it does not reflect some of the points I've mentioned right here. So, as a consumer, we don't act this way. Okay, we don't consider, oh, would this have more utility than this one? Or we don't act like, oh, does this have comparative advantage than this one? What is its opportunity cost? So in real life, we don't act that way. We just act based on our wants, right? We just act on an instinct. Okay, if we feel like we're craving a bowl of pho, we eat a bowl of pho. And we feel like we're craving another bowl of pho, we eat another bowl of pho. We don't look into, oh, what is the opportunity cost of eating this bowl of pho? Or should we eat another? Should we eat bún bò? Is bún bò have lower opportunity cost than pho? Right? We don't consider that. Okay, we just make decision based on our instinct. Okay, so however, why do we need to picture this? Why do we need to think of this? Why do we need to understand this economic approach? Okay, so because this could help us structure our economic decision. Okay, it can help us understand what are the trade-offs that we have to make when we're dealing with economic problems. Okay, if we have a fixed budget, think of this way would help us allocate that budget more effective, right? More effective. Okay, or when we look at a problem from afar, okay, if we think about it, oh, why don't they just spend all of the money in healthcare instead of education? Okay, we also understand that there is the law of diminishing returns, right? There's the law of diminishing returns. The benefits of returns will decrease gradually over time, right? So when we get to know that, we understand why there needs to be a combination to consume both of the goods instead of just putting all the money into one good. Okay. Okay. So there also a second objection about this economic approach is that economists make the careful distinction between positive statements and normative statements. So positive statements is where we describe the world as it is. Okay, so they may be true or false. Okay, but we can test them. Okay, like I said, when we take two things and put it side by side, we are only seeing it react to each other. Okay, and we also assume that people would act like this, right? We would assume that, oh, they don't spend all of the money all at once into one thing. We consider, oh, as human nature, we want to maximize our benefits, right? So that is all of the positive statements we use to identify the problem. Okay, there are also normative statements. Okay, this is describe the world how it should be. Okay, instead of how it is. So this is called normative statements. Okay, so there's also normative statement as well. Okay, normative statements is that you put more in it, like the law of diminishing returns. Okay, it should be like this. Okay, but we cannot test whether this is true or false. There are just opinions based on experience, or based on one's value. Okay. Okay, so, oh no, we already talked about this. Concerning research. Okay, so, but however, these economics analyze the gains and the losses of various events and policy, and draw normative conclusions about how the world should be. Okay, so it's just based on past experience, okay, and from various events and policy involving politics and all of the economic gains and losses in order for us to form the normative conclusion. Okay. Also, the analysis of economics is also rooted in a positive analysis of how people behave and not how they should behave. Okay. So it's just, again, based on past experience. So it's just based on humans' behavior in the past. Okay. However, there's something called the invisible hand. Okay. So the invisible hand is a concept that is invented by Adam Smith. Is invented by Adam Smith, which states that individuals' self-interest behavior can lead to positive social outcomes. Okay, so if they choose to spend money on something, they are actually benefits the economy, like something like that. Okay, so there's a way, there's like an invisible force that put this link individual self-interest with the positive social outcomes. So that is called the invisible hand. Okay, and that is today, and that is chapter 2. Okay, we still have 10 minutes, so let me see if I can squeeze a little bit of chapter 3 into this, because chapter 3 is demand and supply, which is very long, very lengthy. Okay, take this time and send me any questions you have about chapter 2. Okay? If you have any question about chapter 2, let me know. My computer is frozen. Oh my god. The cat is sitting on the bed behind me. No. Yeah, they're too cool for economics. Okay, let me see if I can pull this out. My computer is so laggy right now. Okay, again, take this time to Guys, any question about anything in chapter 2? Okay. And pray for my computer to run. I'm opening so many tabs right now. I need to shut it down. Go away. Go away. Go away. Okay, it's working. Let me share my screen. Okay, so this is chapter 3. So chapter 3, we're going to talk about demand and supply. Okay, so demand and supply is going to be the backbone of everything we are learning. Okay, everything of what we are learning, basically economy just revolves around demand and supply. Okay, so now what is demand? Demand is basically the amount of goods and services that consumers are willing and able to purchase at each price. Okay, so demand is based on the needs and wants of a consumer and is also based on the ability to pay. Okay, so demand is not only about what people need and what people want. It's also about, are they able to pay that price? Okay, so demand go hand in hand with price. Okay, so price is the vehicle to drive demand and supply. Okay, so price is what a buyer pays for a unit of specific good and services. We all know what price is. Okay, now we have something called quantity demanded and a law of demand. Okay, so for example, we are seeing a table right here. Okay, in this table, we have 5 points, point A to point E. Okay, so at point A, okay, a price of a cup of milk tea is 10K. And the quantity demanded at 10K per cup is 10. Okay, so that means when milk tea is 10K per cup, people would want 10 of it. Okay, when the price of milk tea is 15 per cup, we would want 8 of it. People would want 8 of it. Consumer would want 8 of it. Okay, when the price of milk tea is 20, then the consumer would want 6, and so on. Okay, so that is what this table is about. Okay, so the quantity demanded is the total number of units that consumers would purchase at that price. Okay, so at that price, the consumer wants how many of milk tea. Okay, and you guys can see that as the price increase, 10, 15, 20, 30, 50, we see that the quantity demanded decrease. Okay, so when it's 10K, we want 10 milk tea. When it's 15, we only want 8. When it's 20, we only want 6, and so on. Okay, so we see that there is a, what's it called? There is, what is called? Something relationship. There is a opposite trend with these two, okay, when it comes to demand. Okay, so that is the law of demand. Okay, as the price increase, the quantity demanded will decrease. Okay, and similarly, as the price decrease, the quantity demanded increase. Inverse relationship is an inverse relationship. Exactly. Okay. Okay, so this table is called a demand schedule. Okay, there's also a thing called a demand curve. So this curve will let us know how quantity demanded respond to the price changing, with other things being equal. Okay, other elements such as personal preference, such as economy health, all of that does not involve in the demand curve. Only price and quantity demanded is involved in the demand curve. Okay? So this is a demand curve right here. Okay, it's a downward sloping because as the price increase, the quantity demanded decrease. Hence, the downward sloping curve. Okay. Okay, so in real life, it's not a straight line. Okay, in real life, it's something like this, but it's still going down. It's not straight, but it's still going down. Okay, so we see right here when, okay, remember this graph because we'll draw it a lot. So in the vertical axis, it's going to be the price. And the horizontal axis is going to be the quantity. The demand curve is going to be the downward sloping, represent the points that the quantity respond to each price. Okay, we see right here at $2.2 per gallon, the quantity demanded is going to be for 20 million gallons. Okay, and so on. Okay, so you can, based on the demand scheduled, to draw the demand curve. Okay, or you can base the demand curve and produce a demand schedule. Okay. Okay, so the other, this is supply. Okay, so supply is the amount of some goods or services that a producer is willing to produce at each price. Okay, so the price in this case is what the producer received for selling 1 unit of goods and services. On the other, when in the demand case, the price is what the consumer willing to pay. This is the price in supply, means that is the price that producer willing to sell. Okay, the law of supply is a little bit different from the law of demand. Okay, so if there is an increase in price, there will be an increase in quantity supplied. And similarly, if there is a fall in price, there will also be a decrease in quantity supply as well. Okay, so this is a supply curve, and this is a supply schedule. So we see that this is an upward sloping curve. Okay, this represents the relationship between price and the quantity, which is when the price increase, the quantity supplied also increase. Okay, so in real life, it's something like this. It's not a straight line, but still it's going upward. Okay, now I'm gonna stop with introducing demand and supply, and I'm going to take us to chapter 2 Quizlet. Yeah, to chapter 2's Quizlet, and go through again our terminology for chapter 2. Okay, basic economic concept. Wait. Let me share my screen real quick. Okay, here. So now we have take a look at the production possibilities frontiers. Okay. We also take a look at opportunity cost. We also take a look at efficiency. We also know what inefficiency is. When efficiency happens when we are not producing on our PPS. Okay. We know what comparative advantage is. We also know specialization. We also know trade. We just get to know demand the law of demand, the quantity demanded, we also know about supply. We also know about law of supply, quantity supplied, and yeah. Yep, so that is where we at right now. You can just check the concepts, the terminologies back at home. Okay? So these are what we have studied. Inefficient use. Okay. Yep. So if you have any questions, you are free to stay. If you don't have any question, you are free to leave. Thank you so much for coming to class today. There will be further notice about the change in time in the class time. But yeah, if you have any question, you are free to stay. If you don't have any questions, then thank you for coming, and I'll see you next week.